first thank the member for Mid Derbyshire for bringing forward this debate and for all her work on behalf of Ukraine. We travelled to Ukraine together last year, and particularly the work she does for recognition of Holodomor as a genocide, which is hugely important work. And to the member for North Norfolk, who I know well from our time on the EAC, and his absolute and utter commitment, not just to the family that he's hosting, but to the Ukrainian people in general and the work he's done, particularly in bringing generators, much needed generators, to Ukraine. As we've already heard, this is the time of utter crisis for the people of Ukraine. They have been at war very shortly for 2 years. I, last year, went twice. I visited many places that have been under Russian occupation, seen the devastation that has been wrought in Kherson region, in Kharkiv, which is 20 my own city of Leeds. I saw destroyed apartment buildings, destroyed schools, destroyed hospitals, and the devastation of towns and villages along the road. None of the people that live in those places can realistically return. It's our responsibility as a country to host them until there is peace, until the Russian invader has been expelled. I'm really pleased that we've welcomed over 140,000 Ukrainians into this country who are coming to a crunch point. Last September, I hosted an event for Ukrainians and their host families who live in my constituency in a local community centre. It was absolutely full, and the two biggest questions they had to ask me was, first, what's going to happen when my visa runs out? And some of them had visas dated till March 2025. And secondly, my time is running out with my host. What will happen to me? What help can I get? I've also spoken to hosts who understandably have got families, individuals, young women usually, who wanted to move into their own accommodation, and there are significant obstacles to do that. There's a real postcode lottery, and I hope the Minister will address this, because although the government, and I praise them for this, giving councils flexibility to use the local authority tariff to help Ukrainians access housing, particularly the biggest issue, which is having money for a deposit, which Ukrainians clearly don't have. And we actually have situations in I don't know about other places, but in Leeds, where sometimes landlords will demand 6 months or a year's deposit before allowing somebody to move in the house, and who's got that sort of money. But it's a little different when the local authority stumps up for this. Also helping find the first month's rent, providing furniture, covering moving costs, speaking to landlords, and supporting crowdfunding arrangements, top-up payments to sponsors to prevent the homelessness which would be inevitable if these arrangements were in place. But understandably, some local authorities have done that and been able to do that, and others haven't, or have only been able to offer part of that support. And even then, we have areas where private rented housing is in shorter supply than it might be in my own city, where there's been demand for guarantors. And it's unfair, I think, to ask hosts who have already given so much to then guarantor a Ukrainian for a second household. So I think these are really important issues that I hope, though maybe not all of them are under his purview, that the Minister can address, because these are exactly the sort of issues that Ukrainians are dealing with day in, day out. And I don't think we can be at all critical of anybody hosting Ukrainian in their home, even if it's for 6 months, because they have opened up their home, they've taken people in, and everybody's circumstances are different. And we, as a state, need to step in where they may not be able to continue doing that, or the Ukrainians themselves want to live independently, which is absolutely understandable. You know, who indefinitely wants to live in somebody else's home? I certainly wouldn't if I was in their situation. But we also have hosts who want to carry on hosting, who are generous, just like the member for North Norfolk. And retention of hosts is also important, so we need more support from the government for hosts, more training, more support, financial support, working with hosts to support their guests in finding jobs, school places, the social security system, things that put a strain on normal family relations, never mind for people that you've only hosted for a short period of time. In Leeds, we set up a welcome hub, which helped provide some of these wraparound services. But again, as I say, not every local authority is able to do that. The data around this issue is incomplete, but the data that I've got says that up until the 31st of August 2023, 4,890 households, that's 8% of total estimated households that had arrived on the scheme in England at that time, have been assessed by local authorities as being at risk of homelessness or being homeless. That's not really acceptable, considering that we have been put in trust of these people in a time of war. And it might be far worse because 1/3 of local authorities are not providing homelessness data to DLUC. And again, you know, we should maybe push on those local authorities to be bringing forward data, because it might give a clue as to how they're operating. As we're now seeing a much larger number of sponsorships, of hosts sponsorships coming to an end, the risk of homelessness is likely to ramp up. And that's why we need the government to step in to extend the scheme, to provide additional support for hosts and to provide additional support for the Ukrainians. But also say, although it might seem like a long time away, there's an incredible amount of stress on people who are already suffering from PTSD and mental health issues, on anxiety about their visas ending and the potential. A lot of them feel this fear, although it might not be unfounded. I want to hear the Minister give some reassurance to those people that they will have to return in March, April, May 2025 as their visas expire. And I don't think anybody in this chamber or in this place thinks that's acceptable. But they have that real fear that it is, and hearing a Minister of the Crown reassure them that it's not would put so many minds at rest and give them such comfort. My mailbox is beginning to fill up with requests both about the Homes Ukraine scheme and the visa scheme, and it's so important that they feel that we are still as supportive of them as on 24th of February 2022 when the invasion happened, and that we are not in any way walking back a centimetre for our support for Ukraine and its people in this or any other regard. And I think that for so many, both here and in Ukraine, and members of the RADA have come. Lesya Vasilenko, who's the chair of the British group in the RADA, only last week spoke to me about the real need to put people's minds at rest, and it is something that is an active debate in the RADA and as high up as the President's Office, that the UK comes forward and supports people both in Homes for Ukraine and in terms of the visa scheme. And I hope that we can hear some reassurance from the Minister today.